Hi, I'm Nate Fox from Sucker Punch, and I'm here today with some friends to talk about Ghost of Tsushima, Shuhei Yoshida, and Professor Hongo, an expert in Kamakura-era Japan.
So what brought you to choose the location to be in Japan for your next title?
When looking at making a game outside of the infamous franchise, I know we needed two things. We needed a great place to visit in a really interesting time and a great job to have. So to me, the best, most romantic location there is feudal Japan. And the job that you want in feudal Japan is not that of a sake brewer, but you want to be a samurai.
Yeah, well, samurai game, I can see people can associate with becoming a hero as samurai, but the Western studio trying to make a game based in Japan, it's a very, adventurous thing. 本郷先生、
はい、
このサッカーパンチっていうアメリカのゲームスタジオが鎌倉時代を舞台にしたゲームを作る。これどうお考えですか？
いやもうただただ興奮しています。もう何と言っていいのかな、日本のゲームでも実は鎌倉時代を扱ったものはないんです。
ないですね。
ね、戦国時代か幕末か。だからそういう意味で言うと、もう本当にどういうふうにアメリカの方が鎌倉時代を見てくれて、そしてそれを表現してくれるか、もうそれだけで僕はもうゲームの中身よりもそれだけでもう本当に買っちゃいます。
This game was made by Sucker Punch in Seattle, in America. We knew we needed help. And so we reached out to our colleagues at Japan Studios, and we hired experts in many different fields in order to help fill in the many gaps in our knowledge. So Shu, have you ever seen a Western called a spaghetti Western?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So a movie not made in America about an American genre. I love spaghetti Westerns. I feel like they're a love letter to Westerns as a movie format. And this game that we're making right now, respectfully, I would refer to as a cheeseburger samurai.
I don't need cheese in
You don't
my
need
burger.
cheese? All right. So it's a hamburger samurai, where it's an American studio trying to create a love letter to this genre that grew up watching movies and reading in comic books and trying to add to the genre as an homage.
So what about this Kamakura period that you chose specifically in the history of Japan?
Well, I knew that the fantasy of being in feudal Japan was very strong, and definitely who doesn't want to be a samurai? So when looking in history, I noticed that the Mongols had invaded Japan, and I can't think of a better enemy in a video game than foreign invaders trying to destroy and take over your culture. So when reading about the island of Tsushima and how it was invaded, it seemed like a good starting point for this fictional story that we're making up to kind of ground it in some kind of reality.
Yeah, I can see there's a drama being outnumbered by this huge Mongolian army or navy. They are much advanced in technology than Japan team at that time. So 先生、そのモンゴルはすごく大きな帝国だったんですよね、その頃。で、日本という小さな国に入ってきた。
そうですね。
この状況はどういう状況だったんでしょうか。
2つ説があります。一つは火薬を作るのにどうしても硫黄が必要だった。で、硫黄は日本にたくさん取れたんですね。それでその硫黄を手に入れるために日本にやってきたという説が一つです。それから二つ目は、モンゴルはこの時代元という中国風の王朝を作りました。で、中国の王朝というのは東アジア社会の頂点でなくてはなりません。ですから周辺のいろいろな国がその中国の王朝のトップですから、この場合だったらばカーンですね。カーンに対してみんなが頭を下げにお辞儀をしに、そして挨拶をしにやってくる、そういう国際秩序がこの頃東アジアでは作られねばならなかった。 ところが日本はそういうことをしなかったんですね。だから日本に、お前の国も我が現モンゴルに服従しなさいということを言う必要があった。
So in the real invasion of Tsushima Island, there were 80 samurai that rode out to meet the Mongol invaders. And we are breaking from real history by saying that a handful of them survived, including our hero and his beloved uncle, so that they can fight back against the Mongol invaders.
So the actual history might have been more like a one-way victory by Mongols. But you made it so that the Jin and his uncle really had some fighting back against the Mongols.
Absolutely. I mean, isn't that the kind of heroic call to action that gets your blood pumping? I mean, that is a samurai defending his people. And, you know, this is not a perfectly historical game. We're not trying to reproduce the island stone for stone.
Yeah, I was talking with a professor, and he said that there hasn't been even a movie created based on this theme of Mongol invasion to Japan. So he's very happy to have this game. Will probably make many people in the world to be interested to learn more about the history of Japan and especially this, era. 先生、最初に駒田ビーチにこうモンゴルが攻めてくるシーンがあるんですけど、これはどういったものだったんでしょう。
はい、結局初めての侍とそれからモンゴル兵との戦いということになるわけですね。で、史実的にも日本軍はほとんど全滅してしまうわけですね。で、だけれどもなんで全滅したのか。もちろんモンゴル兵はたくさんいた。それで日本兵は何十人かしかいなかった。これはもちろん第一の原因です。第二の原因としては日本の侍はワントゥーワンの戦い方をしていたわけですけれども、モンゴル兵は集団での戦い方をしていた。これはもう完全に集団の戦い方の方が強いですよね。ですからそういう意味で、一番最初の戦いでは日本の侍はほとんど完敗、全然勝てませんでした。
So in game, of course, you play as Jin, as Japanese samurai protecting the Tsushima. However, you also depict the Mongolian army coming in and their motivation and their, state of mind. How have you decided to treat that element?
Well, the leader of our Mongol army is this man named Khotun Khan. And I tried to have his motivation come from Kublai Khan, who try and take these other cultures into the Mongol Empire in order to create, in his mind, total peace that would last and last. So he tries to convince the nations that he's invading to surrender instead of get butchered. He's very reasonable, uncomfortably reasonable.
I found the Mongolian leader in game very attractive guy, very tough, strong, but do a lot of research into his enemy that, and very strategic, very smart.
Well, the Mongols were very smart. I mean, as the professor has said, they're very advanced in their technology, and you had to be really good with people to control an empire of that size. I mean, unparalleled in size.
So for him, what he was expecting when he came to finally invade Tsushima and then Japan, what was his expectation of Japanese people and the army that he may be encountering?
Well, the details of the actual leader are pretty shadowy. We just tried to stay to Kublai Khan's overall objective in the invasion, or in how he viewed in taking over other nations.
いや、フビライ・カーンは、一人の中国人を日本に派遣しています。で、彼は日本に1年滞在して日本の様子をよくレポートしています。で、それには日本という国は野蛮で、それから貧しい、だから征服するだけの意味はないと言っているんです。だけどフビライ・カーンは まさに、モンゴルの精神スピリットを日本にも及ぼそうとして、あの戦争を起こしたんじゃないかなと僕は思っています。モンゴルスピリットっていうよりはもしかしたらチャイニーズスピリットかもしれません。
Because Kublai had adopted many Chinese conventions?
そういうことだと思います。
One of the things I really enjoy playing this game is there are different kinds of Mongol fighters, Mongol warriors in game. So what were the reasons you put in these and how you made decision to do that?
We did some research into different Mongol groups. Mongols, for instance, are legendary for keeping falcons. And different groups of Mongols would treat them as family members and carry around feathers from old hunting partners that had died. So one of the groups that you fight in our game of Mongols, they're the group that come from this falconry background. We have another group that pays attention to the Mongol god Adquan, that is about fire. We did that so that as you move across Tsushima, you feel like there are a lot of different types of Mongols that you're meeting, that it's not just one kind of warrior. Because the game is very vast. And the Mongol Empire is incredibly vast. I'd be curious, actually, Professor, in your opinion, like, how many different sorts of armies were there inside of the Mongol Empire?
大体でも基本になるのはやっぱり馬に乗ってそれで短めの弓を持って相手を倒す、こういう部族だとこういう兵士だと思いますけどね。でただまあもちろんいろいろな形で世界帝国が広がっていけばいくほど彼らは新しい武器を見出すわけですね。それで例えばヨーロッパの戦いでヨーロッパとの戦いだったり、それから中央アジアでの戦い、そういう時にこの武器は使えるなと思えばどんどん取り入れていったんじゃないでしょうか。
All right. What weapon in the Mongol Empire do you think traveled the farthest from one continent to another?
カタパルトじゃないかな、投石機。
Really?
じゃないかな。彼らは草原で生活をしてるから城攻めはしないでしょ。だからやっぱり中央アジアで、都市を攻略する時にカタパルトは必要だったんだと思いますよ。やっぱりその戦いはたくさんのモンゴル兵がやってきて、それで日本の侍がびっくりしたのは彼らが集団戦を、行っていた。要するに、日本の侍はなすすべもなくほとんど、殺されてしまったというそういうことになります。
モンゴルの馬と日本の馬は違うんですかね。
いやそれほど違わないんじゃない。問題はね、鉄なんです。蹄で、モンゴルは鉄がいい鉄を打つことができた。だから蹄鉄がいいんですよ。でそうするとその蹄鉄を使って遠くまで走れる。長持ちする。
They had much better technology that time Mongol had over Japan. But Japan is kind of small island, so it might be okay. What about weapons? So the Japan didn't have these advanced weapons like firearms that Mongolian group may have had. So how do you treat that in the game?
One of the things that we put in the game is that our hero has a katana.
How about other like items? You get shuriken, you get not something that you can throw?
Well, the other weapon that samurai of this time period are known for, of course, is archery, mounted archery. So we tried to put that in the game as well. I am a very cowardly player, so I like to hang back and shoot people at a distance.
Me too.
But Jin does steal from the Mongols and invent new kinds of weapons, like using gunpowder to make smoke bombs or flashbangs, or even learning from his old caretaker how to make poisons to, in a very cowardly way, poison his enemies.
なるほどね。ジンが持ってる弓ですね。棒。あれもモンゴルの弓だともっとちっちゃいんですね。
One of my favorite things about the samurai arms of their time are these enormous longbows that are so different from the Mongols on horseback. I can't imagine trying to pull a 2-meter tall bow back and how much strength that would have taken and what the damage the arrow would have done to somebody compared to the Mongol bows, which were smaller.
So these bows existed at the time that you adopted in the game.
We were told it was the primary means of combat at the time.
本当です。やっぱり侍でもたとえ侍でもあんまり身近に殺し合いはやりたくないんですよ。で馬に乗ってそして弓を使って相手を倒す。だからもしかしたら狩りの文化が侍に流れ込んでいるのかもしれません。
I really like the story about the girl who was trained to be really expert, being the use of bow and arrow, and she was captured by Mongolian group because she was so good, and she actually trained the enemy group, and that is very very interesting, like a human drama around her in the game. I totally enjoyed.
We tried as best as we could to make stories about people struggling to survive inside of a horrible wartime situation. And that includes people siding with the enemy, or sometimes the enemy doing kindnesses for your people.
That makes these people look really human.
Which was absolutely a goal as you explore around Tsushima and get to know these people that are your countrymen and explore their stories. The hope is that people will get lost in just getting to know people and the culture that is so alluring.
じゃあ先生、このゲームのテーマにもなっている一つに侍と武士道というものがあるんですけど、これはどういったものなんでしょうか、一般的に。
やっぱり自分の主人に対して、忠節を尽くす、忠誠を尽くす、それが基本です。で、それは具体的にはどういうことかというと、主君のために戦って死ぬ。でこれは相手を倒す必要ないんです。相手を倒す必要はなくて、自分が犠牲になって死ぬこと、それが武士の最高の名誉なんですね。でそれをやってくれた部下に対して主人は土地を与えるんです。でその土地っていうものを与えて、その土地が亡くなった彼の家の領地になって、そしてその家が栄えていく。だから武士にとってみれば、自分の命を捨てたとしても自分の家族は豊かな生活ができるということで、彼らは喜んでっていうのは嘘かもしれないけど、命を投げ出すことができたんですね。
In our game, we went into it thinking we would tell players about the code of Bushido, all the rules. And we put some in and people started getting overwhelmed. We thought what this game needs to be is about the heart of the code. And so at the very center of the story is Jin struggling with actually doing what his lord tells him to do. Loyalty to what he's being told to do by his commanding officer. As the fundamental rule is also the fundamental point of conflict with him and this man that he loves like a father. The only other aspect of the code that we talk about a lot is respect. Respect for your enemy and respect for tradition. And we did that so that it would be personal, that the actions of the game player and the relationships they have in the game are right in front of them. They're experiencing this thing. I wish we could have talked about all 8 aspects of the code, but we decided to focus on those 2.
とても素晴らしいと思います。
So this game is about the origin of the ghost. Jin starts as a samurai under his uncle's wing, and he adheres to the samurai code. But little by little, he breaks that code, inventing these new stealth tactics, and becomes the ghost, which future generations would probably refer to as a ninja. But we do not do that in this game. What he is this almost like a storied person on the island who's bigger than life. The ghost becomes somebody that the people of the island hope will come to save them, and who is outside of their frame of reference, like Robin Hood.
一つ 僕の実はメインテーマ、研究のメインテーマがまさに今おっしゃった通りのことなんです。鎌倉ピリオドの最初、鎌倉時代の初め、侍はまずウォリアーだったんです。それがだんだん勉強することによって、民を可愛がっていかなくちゃいけない、民を守っていかなくちゃいけないっていうことに気がつき始めたんですよ。それが1250年ぐらいです。だからまさに仁って鎌倉武士そのものなんです。
Jin's uncle is stuck in the past. He believes that only the old system of absolutely adhering to what your Lord says, no matter what, even at the expense of some of your people's lives, is the right thing to do. And that friction creates tension between them and is the drama of the story. Are there any historical stories like that where you see a generation between one generation of samurai and another having to fight about what is considered correct in the code?
よくぞ聞いてくれました。1285年に下月騒動っていうのがあります。11月ですね、下月の騒動で、これはモンゴルが帰った後、侍って民を守らなくちゃダメだよねっていうのが一つのグループ。それから今おっしゃったように仁のおじさんみたいに、侍は侍のやるべきことをやっていればいいんだっていうグループ。それが正面からぶつかったんです。で、結局侍は昔からの侍、戦いに自分の存在価値を見出していくんだっていう方が勝っちゃったんです。で、そのために結局人々は侍は僕たちのことを守ってくれないんだって思うじゃないですか。そのためにやがて鎌倉幕府は滅びていくんだろうと僕は考えている。これが僕のメインテーマです。
And he's been researching for like 40 years.
だけど僕の40年の研究はこのゲームに負けます僕ね、歴史学者としていつも僕は侍を古文書、古い文書で見ています。その侍が見事に生きてる。もう泣けるほど感動的です。
Wow! Thank you so much.
いやでも鎧のねこの袖のところが動くんですよね。はヨーロッパの騎士の鎧、硬い鎧、あれにはないものですよね。その日本のなんか鎧のなんていうのかな、柔らかさ、それから敵と戦う時の頑丈さ、それが両方とも表現されていて、なんか僕はもう一日中でいいから彼を動かしていたいです。
Please do.
I will do.
So when you and your team approached, showing samurai and allowing players to become a samurai, what you thought is important to make him like samurai? What characterize samurai, being a samurai?
So as a person from America, I would say the thing that makes a samurai is there's a feeling of nobility and swagger at the same time, which is a tough thing to get. A lot of the classic samurai movies from the 60s, I think, do a fantastic job of that. But it's a samurai treating the people around him with a lot of respect, but also being straight to business when problems show up. What do you think of when you think of samurai?
Yeah, let's ask Professor.
Good idea.
サムライ精神みたいなのはやっぱり歴史によって変わってきたものなんです。
割とでも平安時代からありますから、だいたいもう1000年ぐらいかもしれません。侍、つわものの道、The Way of Samurai という言葉は1000年前からあるんです。なんといっても卑怯なことを嫌う、不正を嫌う、それで、相手を敬う、 そうしたことはもう1000年前から同じですね。
This is perfect. I think you're going to have a hard time playing our game because in order for our hero, Jin Sakai, to fight against all of these Mongols, he has to start fighting in a cowardly, sneaky way that makes him feel very bad, very uncomfortable, but he does it in order to free his homeland. He breaks his code.
侍はもう戦った後にやっぱりにっこり笑って死んでいくのが侍です。
That's a good idea, because you die a lot in our game. We should put a smile on him. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, well, when I played the game at the beginning, there's a scene that one of Jin's ally, samurai, talked to the head of the Mongolian group, and he introduced himself. He's such and such, and I do this. And then the head of Mongolian just throw fire onto this guy and kill. That was very brutal. That was really impactful scene at the beginning of the game that depicts certain aspect of this way of samurai, I think.
I'm glad that worked for you. We had read that samurai warriors of the era would formally challenge other people to one-on-one duels and talking about their lineage. And to have the Mongols be so just disregarding of this tradition, we thought would set the tone for how the Mongols did not care about any rules of war, and that the samurai were up against an enemy that they had never encountered before.
Or maybe he didn't understand Japanese language.
Koten did.
でこのゲームは、まさに本当になんていうかな、日本とモンゴル2つの文化のぶつかり合いですね。で日本の侍は大変に家系を大事にするんです。私の父は誰、その父は誰、その父は誰でずっと遡っていくと天皇につながるっていうことがよくあります。これに対して、モンゴルではそんなこと言ってたら寒くて死んじゃうんです。だから非常にリーダーは的確に今度春を迎えられるために冬の間家畜をあるいは自分の家族をリードしていかなくてはいけない。それは非常に才能がいるんですね。だからどんな生まれの人でも構わない。才能さえ優れていればいい。そういう日本の家系っていうもの、それから名誉っていうものとモンゴルの才能っていうものがぶつかり合っている戦いなんですね。これは美しいな。これはいわゆる大鎧。平安時代から使われてた鎧が元になってます。
Gonna go to another one.
これもそうですね。でも大鎧が基本になってるな。これ今残ってたら日本で国宝です。これはでも編み笠をかぶってるからもうちょっと時代が後ですね。いやいいんじゃないですか。顔が隠れているんでしょ。
Yeah, they look cool.
They do look cool.
They are cool. I think so.
So here is what our hero eventually looks like when he becomes full ghost.
これ鹿の角の兜がつくんじゃないですか？
No, that's a different one. This is one that I assume is.
あ、そうですか。これはね多分戦国時代の鎧、そういうものを基本に作られたものだと思いますけれども、もうめちゃめちゃかっこいいですね。真っ黒。
That's several hundred years later.
We took the most liberty with the ghost armor, but you were asking about saying that this one looked like something you had seen.
Yes. それ。これは徳川家康に仕えた日本一の勇者本田忠勝のものじゃないかと思うんですけどいかがでしょうか。
So, Professor, sorry, it's going to take me just 1 second to show this.
旗印が美しい。 うわ綺麗だ。何これ。何、ああダメだもん。かっこいい。
I haven't seen this. This must be later in the game.
It is. So, Professor, we are breaking with a little bit of time correctness here by including the Korean technology of the Hwacha, the rocket-propelled arrows, which, to my understanding, are about 75 years later than this.
素晴らしい。ノンフィクションだからフィクションだからもう何の問題もないと思います。それでもっと言えば水牛の角みたいな兜をかぶってる人はあれは黒田長政の兜ですね。みんなちゃんと人物がいるな。うわかっこいい。あとそれから彼がジンが最初に着てた大鎧、あれ日本に残ってるんですけど、アメリカで美術館みたいなところで展示をしたそうです。そしたら美術館の方が20億出すから売らないかって言ったって言いました。
先生、対馬について聞きたいんですけれども、はい、対馬は日本においてはどういった場所にあってどういう意味合いを持つ土地だったんでしょうか。朝鮮半島と九州を結ぶとても大事な場所だったんですね。でもう船に乗って行ってみると分かるんだけれども、九州から船に乗るよりも朝鮮から船に乗った方が近いんですね。ですから対馬を抑えることによって朝鮮との関係を抑えることができる。でそのためにこのモンゴルとの戦いでは戦死をした宋という家は江戸時代のおしまいまで対馬を支配し、そして朝鮮との交渉に当たっていたんです。Control the relationship with Korea. Yeah, so Nate, so Tsushima has a very significant position in Japan in relation to mainland China or Korea. But when I play the game, I can also see some other elements, some beautiful, elements from the rest of Japan. So was it intentional from the team?
We absolutely tried to mimic the diversity of mainland Japan inside of our island of Tsushima, from swamps or rolling beautiful green grass hills or snow-covered mountains, the things that you associate in your mind's eye with beauty of the natural world. We wanted to put there for players to discover.
I haven't seen this. This is so beautiful. Wow.
Beautiful.
So Nate, let me ask you about the towns in the game on the Tsushima Island. And one of the things I really enjoyed was visit different towns in the game, and each has its some unique, aspect. Can you talk about some of these?
Yeah, well, we tried with each of the towns to kind of reflect a different bit of the culture of the times.
So what kind of town is this?
Oh, this is the thieves' town. So it's all built here. I'll just fly around on sort of rickety construction by people who don't expect to stick around for very long, and it's located by the sea, so people can get out on the west coast to Korea. And inside, you'll see a lot of people kind of gambling and drinking, getting ready to do odd jobs. These are people that did not join in the defense of Tsushima.
This looks like a nice resort.
Yeah, except for that everybody here has swords and they will hurt you. Really, you would take your family to this totally unsafe place?
No, kids would love to do this.
Yeah, they would. I'll show you this one. This one is, I think, really beautiful. This is the healing town where you will see acupuncturists and herbs lined up.
I want to live there.
先生、宗教について聞きたいんですけど、その鎌倉時代のこの頃の日本の宗教はどういったものだったんでしょうか。
日本は基本的に多神教ですね。ですからキリスト教とはそこが大きく違います。だから山の神様だったり岩の神様だったり、もうその自然にそれぞれに神様がいるわけですね。だから侍はなんていうかな、自然に対してすごく 敬意を持ってるんですけれども、一人の神様を信仰するっていうことはないんです。
Professor, I can say that in working on this game, one of the most interesting things that I was taught by our colleagues from Japan Studios was the difference between a Buddhist temple and a Shinto shrine. I love the idea of going to areas of terrific beauty and that they have spiritual significance. That's so powerful. I think everybody can understand it and feel it.
やっぱり日本の神様は多神教ですから、いろんな人と仲良くできるんですね。だから仏様が日本にやってきた時にも仏様とすぐに友達になって仲良くなった。でいつの間にか融合していた。ですから神社はおっしゃるように、パワースポットにできてるわけですけれども、お寺もまたそのパワースポットに作られるようになると。だからお寺とそれから神社というものはほとんど一緒になっていて、それで、どちらも侍がそれを尊敬している、そういう世界です。
Just wanted to show you one of the shrines we built in what hopefully is a place of enough beauty to warrant a shrine. Okay.
素晴らしいですね。
Professor, in our game, every now and then, players will meet characters who will tell them stories, folklore about the past, especially people from Tsushima or items, weapons that great heroes had used. I'm not going to lie, we did take a lot of inspiration from traditional folklore. My favorite is this story of the Hamayumi, demon-killing bow, an archer who came to a palace to slay this demon and shot him dead with one shot. And then the bow itself became legendary. That kind of thing, as a game player, really inspires me to want to go out and find these objects. But there are a lot of stories like this in this era.
たくさんありました。たくさんありましたね。本当にたくさんの伝説がいっぱい各地にあるところが日本のある意味いいところなんですよ。でそれはやっぱり多神教なので、そうした一つ一つの神話だとか伝説がそのまま統合されることなく生きていたということになるんだと思います。
Is there a particular legend that you heard when you were a child about a hero or a suit of armor or a weapon that you always wished you could chase down and maybe find that item for yourself?
例えば、大和尊命という勇者がいたんですね。その人が火で草っ腹に一人ポツンといたら周りから火を放たれたんです。で、焼け死にそうになった時に彼は剣を抜いてソードを抜いてその火を消したんですね。その草を切ることによって。でその剣が草薙の剣といって今天皇陛下が持ってる3つの宝のうちの一つなんです。だから僕は一回それを見てみたいなと思いました。
It's still around.
But we haven't seen them. They kind of hide them. And they just give it to next generation.
Do you think it's still real? That it still exists?
いや、いくつかレプリカがあるんですよ。だからどれが本物でどれがレプリカかはわからない。でも少なくとも今でも間違いなくあります。
That's fantastic. These legendary weapons are still around, and that the story grew up and you heard it as a kid.
いや、日本人の少年はみんな知っています。
Yeah, it's one of these picture book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you read. Yeah.
So your mother would put you to sleep by reading you stories of how a man was almost burnt to death and he had to cut his way out of a fire?
Yeah, very smart guy. Yeah. かなり多くのものを失ったと思うんですけど、どういったところでロスがあったんでしょうね。
仏像とかそれからお経、それからお寺の建物、神社の建物、こうしたものは失われたでしょうけれども、それはある意味日本全体からするとそれほど多くのものではありません。それよりもやっぱり形あるものよりも この時に侍と将軍との関係にひびが入っちゃったんですね。つまり要するにモンゴルをやっつけたけど新しい土地は一つも得ることができなかった。で本当は命がけで戦ってくれた侍のためには土地を分けなきゃいけない。ところが何にもこの戦いでは新しい土地はなかったので、それを分けることを幕府はやめちゃったんですよ。で結局そのために幕府は滅びてしまう。侍の支持を失ったんですね。
How did the shogun at the time inspire the samurai to build the wall to prepare for the second invasion and put their lives on the line with no land to gain?
だけど要するに当時まだ日本の国っていうのは強く意識されてなかったんですよ。だから日本の国のために戦えっていう言い方ができてれば簡単だったんだけど、それはできなかった。とするとやっぱり、必ずご褒美をあげるから戦ってくれっていうしかなかったんですね。ところがその約束は守られなくてご褒美はもらえなかった。だから侍は将軍に対して失望したということになります。
じゃあ鎌倉時代、歴史的に対馬は日本と韓国あるいは中国朝鮮を結ぶ非常に重要な拠点にあったということなんですが、今の対馬、現代の対馬っていうのはどういう感じなんでしょう？
やっぱり今でも日本とお隣の韓国との結節点、その韓国と日本をつなぐ大事な土地であることは間違いありませんね。
今対馬に住んでいる方たちにとってその昔起こったこと、戦争とかっていうのはどのように語り継がれているんでしょう？
もう相当古いのであんまり直接どうのこうの、特に日本人ってあんまり昔何をされたかとかいうことはあんまり言わないんでないんですけど、でも例えばですけどむくりこくりが来るぞと、なんかねそういう確か子守歌があるはずです。子供たちに早く寝ないとむくりこくりが来るよと。でどうもむくりっていうのがモンゴルなんじゃないかっていう話はありますね。
なるほど。じゃあこくりはこうくり
なんじゃないですかね。
That is very interesting. Would it have been invented in this time?
多分そうでしょうね。そういう歌がずっと残ってるんじゃないですか。
We've shown you some of the game today, and thank you very much for taking the time to look at it. Our intention is to try and give a feeling of authenticity, even though clearly we've taken some creative liberties, like the use of the hawacha or widespread use of the katana or some of the armor. But from your perspective as an expert on this time period, what is the one thing we need to get right for a feeling of Kamakura era Japan?
Nothing. This is middle age of Japan. I think これこそ本当に日本の中世だと僕は思いますよ。でも本当に僕は歴史を勉強する子たちにもうなんていうかな、必ず買えって言います。
ありがとうございます。